time I close my eyes, I see the night again. In all the dreams I have, I hear the sound of angels cry. Take me back, I need to find those distant memories. Hold on close, slowly, not far through it all. In all my life, I've been searching for a better world, but time has let me down. Here we stand on this broken land, raise my head up high, I can see the sun. We are the children, with fire in the sky, and we are the future. Our souls in the night will never die. Feel the change, it seems it's like the same old day to me. Nothing here I have to live before they capture me. In all my life I've been searching for a better world, but time has let me down. Here we stand on this broken land, raise my head up high, I can see the sun. We are the children, with fire in the sky. We are the future. Our souls in the night will never die.
Yeah, we're live.
It's Thursday night. It's Thursday night, and Dixie Dave is here on time and here for the full show. And we are live, ladies and gentlemen.
And I'm Crusher Crossen. And
I'm Dixie Dave.
And Dixie Dave, National Tag Champ. And today we're going back to Group W Cable, the final taping of Group W Cable. We did 2 shows that day, Dave, and this is the first of those 2 shows, show 36.
Alrighty.
It's going to be a fun show, actually. It was the thing with Group W Cable is at this point in time, we really had a good chemistry going there as far as production goes. I had a dedicated production crew at this point, dedicated camera operators, people in the control room and everything. They were just volunteers, through Group W, but they always did our show. They came every week, I lined them all up.
Right.
And I did that because, initially all of us kids were doing it, but it's like I wanted to concentrate on the running the show. So this freed me up from having to be a director or, having the guys in the camera. And so it gave a more professional look for our camera shots and stuff too. So.
And you didn't have to worry about the camera fading or.
Right. So the plus was this is excellent production stuff, quality, at the studio. But the downside was this environment for the ring and the wrestling. It was just, we were kind of capped at our growth. We really weren't going to grow anymore, wrestling-wise, in that environment.
And didn't you say that this was one of the last shows that was done in Group W?
Yeah, it was the last taping we did there. So now we did 2 shows. Now remember, this is the taping, Dave, that we did when Merciless Mike went against Ace that we've been talking about for quite a few shows, where they had that, where Mike thought he was going to win the belt and it didn't happen. And Ace talked about that when he was on with us a few days, like a month ago. Well, this is that taping, but this isn't the show with that match. That was on the show 7. But what is on this show was Brian Peterson against Mike Ackerman in that grudge match. No disqualification, no time limit. And Brian took full advantage. He got the steel chair, and he nailed Mike with that chair and gave him a good old goose egg, and it ended the match. So...
As in real life, it probably would.
Yeah, you'll see it. It's a pretty good shot for beating kids, and it hurt. So
now we'll see if he did the chair shot correctly or if he did it backwards.
He did it backwards, Dave. That's why he got a goose egg.
Oh,
yeah,
ouch.
He hit the rim of that. That rim we're talking about. Yeah.
Yep.
What else is on this? We got the Dynamite Dude and a couple matches on here against the Super Ds. Him and Rough Ryan against the Super Ds. I go against Ace in a non-title match, and that's on here. What else we got? We got, I think Rough Ryan goes against one of the Super Ds as well. Kid Kelsey against Ace. Madman Nash. Yeah, so this is where Madman Nash has a surprise for Merciless Mike, and keeps bringing it up in the commentating, and then he basically announces that he's leaving, and Mike's no longer going to be tag team champion with him. And Mike thought he could keep the belts, but Nash reminds him, and this just got all out of hand. It was like an actual, how in the AWA days when things would get out of hand, and there's like, okay, I'm breaking loose there. This happened too with this whole deal with this. Only it wasn't planned. and Nash quickly reminds Merciless, no, you're not. I have seniority over the belts. I get them, is his exact words. And he was absolutely right. He did have seniority over the belts.
But before we get into the show, I want to say to the fans, I apologize about last week. Family stuff came up, and I had forewarned Crusher that it was coming up, so. Yeah,
and that's that kind of stuff happens. And the week of July 4th, I'll be out of town as well, and Dave will be running this without Crusher Crossen.
So pray for me, guys.
Whether we have the Irish Terror or JB McCartney come on to help fill in, or we get somebody else, Dave will be running the show that week.
So bear with me that week on July 6th.
Yeah. I got a comment here, David Hill. Good evening, watching from York, Pennsylvania. Hello,
well,
Dave.
Welcome in.
And he also has a second comment. He said, let's see. I read your book and really enjoy watching the old booty. My question, has any kid that has involved in the NWF ever become an adult professional wrestler and make it to the WWF or WCW? In our organization, the furthest we ever got, me and Troy went to Eddie Sharkey with the PWA. I believe Mike Bauer and Chris Barger, the Rock and Roll Express, went and did some stuff with Smoky Mountain in the early days.
Oh, okay.
And other than crossing paths with X-Pac, 1, 2, 3 Kid in the PWA, where Troy actually wrestled him.
Right.
That's the closest.
Which I was there in the crowd, and you and I both know Troy's feelings on Waltman.
Right. At the time, Waltman was just brand new and unknown, and didn't go to Japan yet, where he got noticed. And Eddie initially wanted Troy to put him over, and Troy said, no way. This kid just came in here. Why should I do that? He goes, I've been working, and Troy was right. He's been working with Eddie for months, give me a little play here. Troy stood up for himself on that. And I thought that was good. He needed to, so they worked it out as a, DQ or whatever. Troy got disqualified, I believe, right?
Yep.
I wasn't there. So I would
as I remember, Pretty Boy was there as Troy's manager,
yeah.
and I want to say Pretty Boy pulled the top rope down, and Waltman took a tumble over the top rope, and PWA's rules.
Troy has that. If we ever get in touch with Troy, he has the match on video. So we can maybe get that match, get him on the show. We can do a whole watch along with that. But that would be pretty cool.
What I think would be real cool is if Troy had all the footage from your PWA days.
Well, I've got most of the footage. I've got a whole episode when Troy and I made our debut in the PWA. Or not, I should say debut because I was there before, but at least when we crossed paths in our dual event in '86.
Right.
But yeah, I have the whole show where Troy and I did our, our 1990 with my return and his debut, and I have that whole entire episode.
Oh, okay.
Plus, I got our other matches as well, so the chain match and everything. Which I tell you, Troy wanted to do this chain match, and I was not a fan of it because, I just didn't think that was the right match to do at that point. But Troy wanted to do something different, and boy, was he mad when Eddie, when Wally Carbo and Al DeRusha and
the AWA higher-ups showed up.
AWA high rollers were in the audience, and when Eddie found that out, he's like, all right, you know what? You're not juicing, because Troy was going to juice for this chain match. He said, you're not doing that. I don't want these guys to see that. And Troy was pissed. I remember Troy goes, you know what? Fuck him. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it anyway. He was so mad. I said, Troy, if you do that, Eddie will never let you work here again. Don't mess it up. So I talked him out of it. All right, but I suppose we should get this show rolling, Dave. And one more comment from Dave before we do. Would love to see the PWA footage. That would be awesome if you would show it. Yeah, we can. I was wanting to do a watch along with the PWA if that full. I got that whole episode. So that would be kind of a fun. Some of the guys on there were, I think, Lethal Larry Cameron,
Charlie Norris, Ricky Rice,
Ricky Rice,
Gentleman Jerry Lynn.
Yeah, I believe Jerry was on, and also they had when we did our '86 card when me and Eddie went together on that Champion Legion back when there was full blown NWF days.
I know where this is going. I think.
Well, I'll get to that too, but Ricky Rice was also on that show. So, and guys like Timothy Diamond Flowers, some of the more prominent guys that were in the independent circuit at the time.
Yep.
Not Minnesota, but everywhere.
And the coup de grace of that show.
What was that?
And the coup de grace of that show that you always like to talk about.
And Medusa. As a valet.
AKA Alundra Blaze.
Yeah, she was Ricky Rice's valet at that point. But yeah,
just breaking into the business.
Yeah, we should do a PWA watch along. It'd be great. I think he's just not computer savvy, but it'd be cool to get Eddie Sharkey to do a watch along with us on that PWA show.
That would be. But first we got to get in contact with him.
Yeah, since my original Facebook account got hacked and everything, I lost all my contacts. I used to have them as a contact and everything, but anyway, and it's hard with I'm using my middle name now, and it's hard. People don't know it's exactly me. And with all the fake accounts out there, people don't trust, and I don't blame them. So let's get the show underway, Dave. This is okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is just so everybody's clear. We are going to watch NWF TV Taping 36 from Group W Cable, recorded on March 16th, 1985. This was the final Group W Cable taping. And the next show after this, we have another show from the same day that we did. But then after that, we moved to the garage studios, and we do that whole run in the garage.
Yep. Until that damn insurance agent ruined it.
Yeah, thanks to the nice article in the Star Tribune on our show, it gave us a little too much publicity, and the insurance agent seen it, as bad luck would have it. All right. So, we will get the show going. Yeah, these Group W days were fun days.
all the days in the NWF were fun days.
Well, the thing with, the wrestling obviously is not up to par at this point in time. We know that, right?
Right.
But it's the character development and just the just seeing the rivalries start to take place and all of that. And at the time, Dave, in 1985, there was nothing like this.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that real unique factor really did. And
I think if I remember correctly, there had only been like one other attempt in the state of Minnesota at a junior professional wrestling organization.
Action.
And it was kiboshed because the person that was in charge of it was a part of a famous wrestler's fan club. The wrestler found out about it and said, "No, thank you."
Of the day here.
Yeah, and different era, different time. They looked at it differently. Where when we did it, and I sent my tapes to Vern Gagne and everything, which I did, right around this time of this show, I think a little before that, I sent tapes of our shows to Vern. But Vern didn't advise us to shut down.
Right.
He didn't know what he was going to do with us, but he more or less let us do our own thing. And he let us get away with a lot of stuff, including using All-Star Wrestling, which is his trademark. He didn't, he went after other organizations that did that, but he kind of turned a blind eye to us. So,
Super D's, Rough Ryan, and
if anybody has any questions as we go along here, don't feel free to ask. Dave and I will answer anything that comes up as you guys want to ask questions. That's what we're here for.
here's the bell. And here we are, folks. As there's a kick.
Certainly would help out with that. Anything come? If any questions or comments?
This is massacre. You don't
So,
just sit there doing
you got Rough Ryan and the Dynamite Dude. I think he's going by CJ Superstud. He changed his name for like a show.
Ryan gets
And
with his
I didn't like the idea, so I'm the one that said, Adam, you're going back to the Dynamite Dude.
shot to the midsection there. They get a tag.
But that's the Dynamite Dude there. And the Super
Dynamite Dude
D's,
tags. It's one of the Dynamite
who were
Dudes.
9
Rough
years old
Ryan,
at this point,
and
Dave.
again.
I think when they joined, they were 8. They were 8 years old when they joined, actually. Their birthday had just,
Rough
or maybe they're still 8 and they're going to be 9 next month.
Okay.
Can't remember when their birthday, if it's May or March, but
Oh, and there's a kick.
referee
to
there is
Super
Eric
D's
Balaban. He was Brian Balaban's younger brother, and he wanted to come in on this show and just be our referee. So he's our referee pretty much for this whole entire
Well,
team.
this is Ace, and we're. Oh, give it here, Ace, you little pipsqueak.
I hear Madman coming on the mic.
And I have something to say. I have a little surprise from Merciless Mike Ackerman that I'll announce after our match. I think it'll really.
Hey, Crusher, check out the private
Did I
chat.
hear your name? What did you say? What did he say, somebody? Oh, well, okay.
The private chat for the show.
Okay, well.
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, well.
This is Rough House Robert's gonna do a little commentary here. As you see, the most fabulous and exciting.
But yeah, you notice Madman Nash, he made the
cross
comment
country
there
for
about,
kids NWF professional wrestling, whipping to the ropes, and
he made that comment about
given by Rough Ryan, tag with Dynamite Dude.
the little surprise for
One
Merciless Mike
half of
Ackerman. So
Super
that should
D's,
be pretty
throws him in the
interesting.
ropes, back to the other side, and another knee to the gut. And a tag, Super D's. A few chops to the back. Dynamite Dude throws him into the ropes. Bounces back.
Yeah, with that angle, you can actually see how oblong the ring was.
Yeah.
Submission hold. Super D seems pretty phased.
I got a comment here from Gizmo.
Super D
He
comes
says,
in
did
and
you
tries to
find
take
it easier or
Dynamite
more
Dude, Rough
challenging
Ryan.
working with the
Dynamite
younger
Dude.
wrestlers? Oh, obviously, it was a challenge just
Ref's trying to
because,
keep it under control. As you see, his hand is getting a bit
you know, they're younger and they're not as coordinated and
Don't understand the business as much.
right. They don't, the philosophy part of it a little bit.
Thrown
But
out of the ring. All these flies
you know,
out
for
of
the Super
ring
Ds,
to the very
for
heart
instance, because they're only
of
9 years old, they were an exception because once they got
Trying to keep
rolling
things in order.
at the end of the year
Had
here and into
Dynamite
the
Dude gets back
86,
into
they
the ring,
really kicked it
tag
into a
Dynamite
different,
Dude and Rough
they
Ryan.
went to a different level.
Rough Ryan butt to the
But,
chest.
you know,
Knee to the back.
and the hardest thing with lightweights, what I remember is
Here we have Merciless Mike with a
they
few more
really
comments
didn't,
on
you know,
wrestling
with that
and
age
other people
group,
who he
they all want to win.
allies and
They
enemies.
want
Right.
to win, they all want to be champion, and they don't want to understand the
Is the oldest little
Concept of working.
the concept of working. So where the older kids were a little more,
Look at this match.
they could see it better, you know.
Rough Ryan and Dynamite are for sure got this match.
Of course, in these
winning.
days, title matches were shoots anyway. So,
Who do you think's gonna win?
and I tell you though
From
that,
what I see,
and
Rough
as
Ryan
you can
and
see
Dynamite
with
Dude
these
seem to be
guys, they
taking,
don't
pretty much
play.
control. As you know,
They play
both have
rough
experience
here.
over the Super
This
Ds.
is-
That's my opinion.
That's my kind of move.
They're not taking it easy with each other.
Get him
They're
dizzy and pin him. Peterson has just walked into the area. Okay, he just got here. Okay. Anyways.
another comment
Adam,
from Gizmo.
uh,
It doesn't seem in some of your videos the older wrestlers seem to go off on their own ideas more often,
Ref is late.
or it does seem.
And there's
Not
the
doesn't.
pin.
It does seem.
Let's get the official decision.
Yeah, because some of the guys just had a lot of ideas. Kelsey was.
Get it over.
I think back to Matt Kelsey and how he was constantly, both him and Jason were coming up with different ideas for
Get the official decision. Let's get
things
the
we could
official
do, different angles in some of the matches,
Right.
Your guy.
that kind of thing. Plus, other guys, like I think what Gizmo was referring to, is they take it into their own initiative to
With
just
4 minutes and 11
their own
seconds, your winners, the newest tag team, Rough Ryan and CJ Superstar.
There we have the official decision.
Kind of like me last week with
The net.
Mr.
now we'll
Destroyer
go to an
on the
exclusive
show.
Interview in the NWF.
You know, we were booked, and I told him, hey, I lost my first match.
Would you like to have an interview with the Crusher Crossen?
That's a good point, actually, Dave. That is kind of how that went.
Merciless. Let me talk.
Yep.
First of all,
And by the way, folks, we're on EVMux now. We're not on StreamYard.
champion right now. You know
Let
why?
me know if you see any issues with the video playback, but it should be pretty solid. It's being hosted by EVMux instead of me sharing it.
And I don't care for that. I
So
mentioned that last time, and I'm going to mention it this time.
hopefully,
I should be the
hopefully that works
champion
out
right
better
now, and I
for
don't have the
everybody.
belt. They took it away. Get your hand away from me.
hopefully,
Okay.
you know, that stuttering and stopping and all that stuff. I'm hoping
Today
that's
it looks
gone.
like you're gonna have your
Oh,
Right.
revenge against the whole Peterson side, against Peterson, Camp, and Ace.
Yeah, Merciless Mike kind of filling in as the interviewer here. He's
Okay. Do you possibly think you can win?
Rich Taylor was our normal interviewer and match commentary and stuff, and he had just left us a few
yes,
shows.
I think I could win. I wanted the match. I went to
Few
say I
shows
couldn't
before
win,
this, so
but we
we
couldn't have won.
didn't have a dedicated
I
announcer
win.
at this point.
In fact, I'm right out in the ring right now. And
Hey,
we're
Crusher, I see another comment.
Right in the ring, there's no tag, no
Yeah, I got
disqualification.
another comment here.
I didn't want that.
Did you ever
I wanted
feel
to
like
time limit, but they wouldn't do it.
you lost control of an
Time
event?
limit, but I'm still gonna win. Not only that, but I'm gonna wrestle Ace.
Well, I
non-title.
did
get my revenge.
Actually lose
I got
control of
everything.
an
I got
event.
everything I want today, and I'm gonna win.
When we did our final Armory card in 1987 at the Anoka Armory,
Goodbye.
we had a battle royal on that show, which I was supposed to win. I think I've been in the only battle royal I ever won.
Crusher. Okay.
Anyways, I was supposed to win the battle
Next
royal.
match
And
is a non-title match. The Ace.
Thandar,
versus Space,
Tim Holland,
escorted by
didn't
Peterson.
want to see that. He was mad that
Do you
night.
think,
So he decided that he
what do
and
you
got
think
his
will happen
cousin
now that
Jerry
this is
Wellman
a
in on it,
non-title?
and his other cousin
my
Chad,
manager
somebody,
didn't get
Holland, I think,
a chance
His brother.
his brother. And they all kept me from winning that battle royal, and it went south. But I stayed in that ring for 20, at least 15, 20 minutes. It seemed. Wouldn't let them get me out. And they just kept working me over, and I just stayed in there. And finally, Mystery Man and the Destructors came out, and I think they were going to jump in there, and they seen what was happening backstage, and they were going to come in there and clean house.
Calm down.
And that would have been pretty interesting. We'll have to talk to those guys about that. And anyways, by the time they got out there, I already decided this is enough, and I finally went over and got out, and I let Mystery Man pull me out like he interfered to give it some legitimacy. Yeah, that's when I lost control of. And Tim was hot, and he knew I was mad. And after the show, we had some words across the armory when we were tearing down, and Tim had to be taken out
We have
with
a
his
6
family or
minute time
whatever
limit here.
because he was getting so
Non-title
aggressive.
match. Joining me at
And
ringside
that-
is
yeah.
Peterson.
That was the one time.
So,
where I lost
That was the thing about Tim back
just
then is he
stick to the
could
ring at the time.
be a hothead.
Well, let me tell you this. So that's what happened. When we went to the dry dock
Peterson here.
a few months later, and Ernie Ellis bought the show for me, and we started going with them running it. And I was just the video guy for it. I took care of all the video production side of things. Then Tim wanted back in the league, and he went to Ernie and explained everything that happened, and wanted to know. And then Ernie came to me and said, "You know what? He feels bad about what happened, so I'm gonna let him back in." So are you okay with that? I said, "I'm fine." Tim and I had a professional relationship from that point on. We never really discussed what happened, but we didn't have a problem. You know, we just moved on from each. But then several decades later, Tim Holland contacted me on Facebook and formally apologized for that whole thing.
Right.
That he really felt bad about it as he got older. What can we say? You know?
Irish rip into the
So, you know, you're young, you're at that age, and look, we all make decisions at that age that we kind of wish we could take back, right? All of us, everybody watching.
Oh yeah.
does take the wind out of you.
Well, depending on how young some of our viewers are.
That's enough to
Yeah.
put anyone out.
All right, so Crusher Crossen versus Ace. Now again, you gotta remember, my mindset this time is I want to really push Ace as the champion. I want him to. I didn't want this to be a couple show run for him. I wanted him to really have a run with this. So, you know, even though this isn't a shoot match, we're, I'm still kind of wanting to put him over. So, even though it's a non-title match, I could obviously win this. But we'll see what happens when the match ends. I'm not going to give away any spoilers.
Chauncey's such a wimp.
One thing I like they did in Group W these days, they moved that second camera to the corner of the ring so you get this long view, which I think is a pretty cool view.
Yep.
They pointed that out earlier.
Reversed by Crossen.
Much better than just the traditional, like this view and then another view very similar on the other side. So they gave it a really unique second shot. So. You can hear the other wrestlers acting as the crowd kind of in the background, cheering on different guys here.
Trying to take on Ace, throws.
What you basically have is you have Peterson and them guys all cheering for Ace because they're on that family, and then you got people on Mike Ackerman and those guys on my side cheering for me. We didn't play the traditional everybody boos the heel, everybody cheers the babyface in these days. That came more in the garage.
Another head cracker by Ace. Knee to the shoulder.
Back in these days, it was the Family Feud.
It was a family feud. It really was. That's how we came up with that match, the Survivor Series style.
Ace trying to pin.
We called it the Family Feud match because we had two main
Not
families.
succeeding. No, not succeeding.
It's funny when you think about that. We did a Survivor Series 4 years before the Survivor Series. One match.
Coming back. He's getting mad. Severe chop to the head sends Ace wobbling around the ring.
You know, Crusher, we've had this show going for a few months now,
Mm-hmm.
and I've kind of wondered what the demographic is of our crowd.
Yeah.
You know, so
Ace is still
we've gotten some of the people to tell us where they're from. I'm just kind of curious of the ages of some of our viewers.
Ace breaks free.
Well, I know what it used to be. It always used to be a mix, just like it was back in the day.
Yep.
Crusher breaks clean.
You know, I don't think that demographic has really changed. You have kids, you have adults that all kind of like watching.
Got him in headlock now. Bulldog
You know, I've
counter.
often wondered, you know, why didn't anybody let me know about the NWF sooner?
Well, you didn't have cable. You know, if you don't have cable, that's a real problem, right? Because you're not going to hear this or see it.
Right. But you see, the thing is,
Here you go, Dave. Here's an answer to one of your questions. David, he's 52, so he's basically my age.
yep.
Close to your age, too. I mean, I'm 53 now. So,
But you see, the thing
think of it this way for David. He was our age. So if David would have been in Minnesota at the time, he could have been on the show.
yep.
And what kid? Come on, let's be honest. Think of yourself when you were a kid. Who wouldn't want to be on a show like this as a kid? If you're a fan, right?
Exactly.
And that was the appeal, really. That's what, you know. And like I said, Dave, in these days, no internet, no YouTube, no satellite television, nowhere near 500 channels. You're talking
Right.
40 channels, I think, maybe, right?
Exactly.
Chop to the chest.
With maybe 2 or 3 or 4 movie channels, and that was it.
Yep.
So, you know, so people would, and in those days, the way you did it with the clicker or the remote, you channel searched. You didn't go to the channels. You went channel up, channel up, channel up, right? And just went to each station to see what was on.
Kind of like the old Roku remote.
Yeah. And so people would fall onto our show because we were in a really good channel, like channel 3 usually in those days. So we were sandwiched between the networks.
Both wrestlers seem to be
So,
tired.
Yeah.
See,
That's why I think, and everybody says, well, why don't somebody do it today? Oh my gosh. Satellite television, DVRs, 500 channels. Community television is just not a factor
Couple of
anymore.
elbows to the head.
It's,
Okay, here's another way to put it.
I think you've all been waiting.
Okay, you look at all the wrestling organizations that are out there now.
This is gonna be unreal. Said right
You know, you've got your WWF or WWE, excuse me. You've got your TNA,
hang
Impact.
on a second,
You've
Dave.
got,
I'm going to have to cut you off quick.
I'm going
So I put Ace over again. I let him pin me.
right.
So there you go, Dave. You don't think Pressure Crossen takes a pinfall? I take pinfalls, even when it's not a title involved.
Me and Sean, even though I'll be on the
But getting back to what I was,
Yeah, go back.
getting back to what I was saying, you know, you've got your AEW, your New Japan, you've got your MLW. You know, you've got all these companies out there.
This brings up new opportunities.
And how many of them are actually nationwide,
Roberts are the new
easily accessible on TV?
I have seniority over the belt.
You got your AEW, you got your WWE.
Yep. Oh, Dave, this is that commotion.
He couldn't wrestle anymore. Injuries.
So Madman basically said, you're not getting the tag team belts. I have seniority. That was a whole off-scene commotion.
Yep.
And it doesn't end here. It keeps going on.
Out of the ring. Ouch. Come on, you got get out of the ring. Get you. I'm getting out of the ring. Oh, well, anyways, if he's not gonna... You lost the title, buddy boy.
That is when Madman Nash was at his best. When it was like when he was hot, when he was mad, and the words just flowed out of him. You lost the title, buddy boy.
The champion of the...
Madman, he was a great character.
There are 2
Great
shows
character.
now. Ace.
But as I was saying, with the way
Do you possibly think you
it's
can
hard to find
win?
wrestling nowadays, it'd be next to impossible for a small-time promoter to
This match with Crusher.
get a show like ours up and going,
I saw
especially at the level that we were at.
wrenches and
Right.
everything. Oh, well, let's
You're
get
absolutely
down to
right.
business. Well, I've been
Another
pumping
comment
iron,
from
I've been working
Gizmo.
on it, been running 2
Did any of these
miles at
matches turn
morning, 2
serious and
miles
turn
at
into a
night.
real
And on
fight?
top of it all,
It
I
got
have a
really
new
close
tag team
there.
partner.
Yeah, with Nash and Ackerman. Yeah, me and Kelsey for
Anything to
sure.
say? Oh, not
When I
much.
got the belt
Just,
from him, it was a
good
shoot.
take team
Basically, it
with
was real.
Can you get his name, please?
There was a couple other instances where that kind of got out of hand. You know, in these shoot days, especially,
He looks like Wimp Street.
that happened on more than one occasion.
Thank you. Okay.
Not
Next
horribly
we
bad.
have
I mean, it
my
wouldn't
partner.
carry over, but it would happen in the match. You know what I mean?
Right. But no, what I was saying earlier about
Welcome back to the NWF for this.
why didn't I join earlier?
It's gonna be.
Yeah.
Okay, prior to when I joined,
Trader, as we call him.
I knew Terry Block
And,
away from the NWF. I knew Tim Holland away from the NWF. You know, neither one of them ever told me about it.
Balabon, who cares? Hold on.
Yeah.
Not until that May 6th card,
May 9th.
or May 9th card, yeah.
Tough enough to go on the bad side, guy, but he's not, of course.
On behalf of our side, I have kicked you out of my side. So, you are out of my side. I don't even want to see your face around. I'm having a match with you first thing.
This was basically, I did that for Mike. 'Cause Mike was really upset that Derek took the belt from him, so I kind of fired Nash from our side. And then we get this. The mayhem happening in the middle of the ring. You gonna calm down? You gonna calm down? Look at Peterson. Are you gonna calm down? Are you gonna calm down? Oh, Brian, I tell you. Brian Peterson was the one guy that I just wanted to just rip his head off because he would get me so
Wrestlers cleaning out
mad.
his ring here.
And he was a big kid and he was
Good
strong.
order here as
I
Right.
liked Tim Holland.
Madman
big
Nash
guy
has
and
switched to the
strong.
bad
and
side for no reason. He
get
seems to be
that
acting
attitude
wimpy. I don't
under
know
your
why.
skin, man. For
Weasel.
real.
Let's have a few words from.
Did Brian and Tim ever cross paths in the ring?
Here, the Nash.
No, because when Tim made his debut, well, actually, yeah, they did. As a matter of fact, they wrestled each other in the October card when Brian came back.
Oh, okay.
But when Brian came back in October for that match and he filled in for Chris Barger for the Express, he was a different Brian Peterson.
Okay. Anyways, Madman.
He wasn't the same.
Right.
Older, kind of matured a little bit, I guess you could say.
He is not.
So this is Brian Balabon, Bad Street Balabon, wrestling Madman Nash's his debut. Ace brought him on the show. But Brian, he did Bad Street Balabon, but what Brian really was good at and did for us is he became our announcer, match commentator and announcer in the garage studio.
Nash to the
Oh,
Really
okay.
good at it.
Peterson side.
He was kind of like a Mike Tenay.
too good.
Oh.
I
Very,
should be
very
really happy about it.
backstage.
Dynamite
And,
Feud seems to be
Yeah, he
waiting to say
was
something.
good. I wish he would have stuck with it longer. He
It
didn't
is
do it.
not the Peterson
He
side.
pretty much did all the garage shows with us, and they came back for a couple Fred Moore tapings, and
I
then
don't even want to be
he just had other interests and went on to do other things.
Want to switch to somebody else? You don't want your
But I always liked Brian's
big mouth
commentating.
saying something.
That's right. He's just big flat mouth. Hey, I got
We'll
beat
watch
down
some of those
today.
shows
That is
in the
good.
future here and be able
You
to see
see
some of
that?
that stuff.
Derek, a little, what'd you call it? Pipsqueak. Madman, that's what he is, mad. And
I like Madman's character. I just did. You know, he kind of reminds me of when you watch him. It's kind of like
What he's doing.
he wasn't tough like Harley Race, but he had that Harley Race look.
What are you
You
trying
know?
He doesn't know what he's
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
the King Harley Race, but Harley Race.
Right,
Like
yep.
a spoon. Jeez, tell ya. Some rats are smarter than he
The
is.
thing with Madman is he was so funny. He could make you laugh. Like he was always into telling
If you're a
jokes.
Dynamite dude, don't,
He was just he was very funny.
Favorite Madman Mash or Pipsqueak. Anyway, back to the ring here and some action.
You know, that's one thing I was just
Trying to
thinking
get a
about.
piece of Madman Mash.
That another person that was always really funny was Troy Steeners.
A
Oh
few
gosh,
forearms to the back.
yeah.
Elbow too good. Irish whip
Yeah.
to the
Troy was a
back.
prankster though. He
Oh,
loved to
grabs
rib.
onto the leg, yes.
Oh.
That's what he's doing. He flips him over onto the carpet.
I remember he had a match
Holds him
and
down.
it was some kind of no disqualification
Breaks free.
and
Holds him down again.
kind of anything goes. So Troy brought this squirt bottle of stuff that he told everybody it's battery acid.
As well as
Yeah.
Crossen. Trying to
It
get a
said
piece of
it said acid. He wrote it up like he put a sticker and everything on it, and he was gonna basically squirt it in people's eyes.
Man,
Ref breaks
what are
it
you
up.
doing wrestling some
And
little out there?
he actually got
me.
Terry Block in the eyes with
Take
this
on little
stuff, and it
guys all
wasn't
the time.
acid, but it was something else. But it screwed up his eyes. His eyes were all red. You know,
Crusher.
I remember that happening. I'm like, Troy, what the heck's in that stuff? He goes, it's not going to hurt him. It's not going to
And
hurt him.
that's the end of the match.
Can you imagine not knowing what the heck's in that bottle? Just
Victor
working
goes
on it.
to Madman Mash.
Yeah.
Oh, and even away from the ring, he
The
was
ring.
Yeah.
Well, get back out and don't.
he was almost worse away from the ring than he was in the
The
ring
winner, Madman Nash.
when it came to pranks.
What's the next
He's
match?
just a little mad in the brain.
You know, I think Brian, when
We'll be
Brian
right
left the
back
show for a while, and
right
then he
now.
came
Okay,
back.
We're gonna go to an interview. We'll
Like
be
he
right
in the
back,
garage, he was
right
gone
after
for
this.
several shows, and he came back. He's kind of more mellowed out a little bit, and I think he wanted to change his reputation. Like he's trying to get away from that, because he knew that people he got under his skin. He's trying to come out of that a little bit, you know.
Right.
Kind of mellowed out a little bit.
Okay, Madman.
These days, Brian was just
How do you
one of our
feel
best
about
heels because of it.
Space and his new partner. I mean, the guy is this tall. What partner? I didn't see.
So
him.
this
He's
interview
too
was
short.
pre-recorded to their little fallout that they had. So,
Right.
What does he say?
Yeah,
Get
they're
Street?
obviously
Whip Street?
still a team
Which one?
here, but
Well, he's just a little wimp. I think I have a match with him today. I'm not worried about it. That's why I'm not too sure. I'll just see you around.
all right. Another question, Dave, from Gizmo for you.
Peterson and
Oh, okay.
Dave,
Let's
approximately
Yippee.
how many matches were you in during these events, and what was your most memorable ones?
Okay.
So approximately how many
Thank you.
matches
Next,
during the
we
events?
Well, I was only with the NWF
Ladies and
for
gentlemen, welcome back to
approximately a
NWF.
year.
Just got done seeing an interview with Madman Nash, now former.
And of that time, you were gone over the summer.
Right.
Trader,
Yeah.
just like
So-
Roy Rich, he's off our side. Personally, I'm kind of glad, but now
What?
Now to introduce
Maybe
the man
20
who
matches
back
in the NWF.
the
Yeah.
heavyweight champion.
You know, just guessing right off the top of my head.
I mean, yeah, just kind of a rough guess, because we did all those tapings in Dayton that you were a part
This
of.
is a
Yep.
non-title match, I might add.
And I mean, I pulled double duty on some events.
Yeah, and then you were in the tail end of Fred Moore as well as some of the outdoor tapings.
Kelsey.
Yep.
Oh, what can I say, folks?
So, you know, memorable stuff.
Wait for the bell.
Obviously, October 18th, 1986.
Yeah, the big sellout.
Yep. That's an obvious memorable one.
It hasn't looked like
Uh,
Now think about that, Dave, that event. I mean, 450 people piled in that armory to see our show. Now, I'm not saying we're huge popular attraction, but in the community of Anoka, we had a foothold.
Non-title match versus Ace.
Yep.
And, Washington,
There's no doubt
DC,
about
good friend
that.
of mine, Kid USA Kelly.
and
All right.
the quirky thing, which at the time Crusher didn't know
It's been decided.
of the event, is
Crusher Cross and
the day of that title win for me
Crusher
was the day of my birthday.
Right, and I didn't know that.
I have a lot to
So
say.
it's interesting. The October 18th
Casey
card was
getting
supposed to be
beat the
October
ground,
17th. It's supposed to be
I
on a
might say.
Friday.
Look at Kelsey. Look at him. He's never.
And the Armory had a
He's got a
prior
move coming up.
booking that they weren't aware of. They double booked. And so we had to change it to the following day, Saturday.
Nobody can do the bulldog like Kid Kelsey.
We got
You
double
didn't even
booked into
see that
Friday.
today.
So like all the promos that we have for the first
Take a seat here and interview
line of
him
matches for
inside.
the Armory, we always keep saying
Oh, look at
October
this. He's got
17th,
metal
you know,
bands on
Armory.
his wrists. Referee got
Because that was the
metal
initial
bands on his
date.
wrists. He had them on my match too.
And the stars aligned in my favor,
Metal bands,
and
foreign objects all over. Did you check them? You got foreign objects.
my 13th birthday, I was wrestling in a professional ring.
Oh, that ring was good. That was
If
the
this
best
was a
thing
title
that
match,
we
I
ever
think
did
we
as a
have a
league
new
was get that
champion.
professional wrestling ring.
If this was a title match.
Because the wrestling really evolved when we got that ring.
And right now, ringside,
Yep.
Rough Ryan. Rough Ryan, any words? Your brother's wrestling out
That's
there?
one thing I've always said I would do if I ever won the Powerball or anything.
Just get a ring to have.
I'd buy a 2 or 3 acre plot of land, put a pole barn up,
He's a lot better.
and I'd buy myself a ring.
So, you know, our rings were the breakdown ring, right? With the spring.
Yep.
The older style designs where they had a spring.
to win.
Now the new rings are all
So I wanna
flexi steel,
stay.
so they're basically steel that spans the
I just
whole
gave you
length
a
of the
knee there.
ring, and it has a
Oh, Kelsey.
natural
Oh, no.
flex.
Look at kid
So that's
Kelsey.
where you
Look at-
get your
look at him. Looks
bounce.
Like, doesn't he look like Mad
Yep.
Dog Vachon?
I've never worked in a
that's
flexi
a
steel
flexi.
ring. I've always wondered what
Oh,
it would
hit
be
him.
like taking a bump on
Ladies
that
and
versus
gentlemen,
what we
you
were
don't see
used
action
to.
better than this for
With
kids
the
in
actual
wrestling.
traditional
NWF,
springs.
National Wrestling Federation, coast to coast, north to
Um,
south, east to west, you name it, we're there.
Not that the spring. Don't be fooled, guys. When I talk about a spring, you're thinking, oh, it's like a nice, comfortable
This is
landing.
a 5-minute time
No, you
limit,
still
I might add.
take. Your body will
We got super
absorb
matches
it. I mean,
coming
it's a
up, ladies and
shock,
gentlemen,
but
super
it's a
matches.
lot better than say this
First match on
plywood
the
stage
card,
we're on
Mike
here,
Merciless Ackerman
Right.
to wrestle
or the plywood ring in the garage, or the
Peterson.
Fred Moore
No
infamous
disqualification, no time
wrestling
limit.
mats on
We've already
concrete
broken the
ring.
rule book in half. There will be no time limit.
You know, that's
Okay.
the one thing I always tell people
Then
when
after that, we'll
they,
see CJ Super Stud to go get
when to me they use the F word.
Chuck versus Brian Peterson after
When it
that.
comes to
Or
pro
Roberts.
wrestling.
Fake word?
Brian versus Super
Yep.
After that.
Yeah. Yeah, even as kids, we hated hearing
Then the
that.
Wild Boys
You
versus
know,
the
when they'd say it was
Fantastics.
fake. You didn't.
Then
You tried to defend the
the
show.
Wild
You
Boys
know,
doesn't
even at
exist.
our
Just
age.
dislocate that match.
You know, you took.
And you know,
pride-
even
Sean or myself versus
even in the age now that kayfabe's dead,
Hey,
Yeah.
referee, slow down the count.
I'll look at people and I'll tell them, you know,
Count on him.
wrestling may be scripted, it may be predetermined,
I'm switching them.
but that sudden stop when you fall
They don't know what's going on. It works all the time.
still feels the same.
But you know, kayfabe wasn't dead here. It was just
Exactly.
coming out. I mean, the 2020 report kind of came out around this
Okay,
time.
sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen.
But, I mean,
Look at these beat names.
I remember
These beat names.
myself, Mike Ackerman, Todd Tampa, and Rob Jacob. So we got the Jacob family and the Crossen family all together at the Anoka County Fair, walking down the little midway of the fair. And here's the cable company
1
doing
minute
live
left in this
interviews,
match,
right?
Ladies and gentlemen.
People coming by,
1 minute
they
left.
recognize this, and they're like, "Oh, look at here! We got the." At that time, we were the TWA. We got the TWA Kids Wrestling Organization. We got some guys from the show. Come on over here, and then we were caught and all together.
More stronger.
And so my kayfabe way of thinking, even back then, Dave,
Robert just gave me the.
I'm like, yeah, we just happened to run into these guys here just walking in, and you know, we're gonna keep it clean for this interview. We're not gonna get into it, but not, I tried to basically sell it that we were not there together.
20 seconds left.
Because I'm like, my thinking is, oh my gosh, we're together at the fair. We can't have this.
Yep.
We gotta commentate on this.
Well, I remember even when you and Troy were working for Sharky, you know, you were trying to help me get my foot in the door with Eddie, and
5 seconds left.
so to speak. And I was paying my dues being a gopher.
Yeah.
And every time I go down that staircase,
Ring the
I'd hear
bell.
kayfabe.
A lot of times they'd say it, because remember, it's 90.
USA Kelsey.
So a lot of times they're
What's
saying
Duke
it
in this
joking.
one, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
I bet with Matt. I said Matt
There
couldn't
was
win.
five
Couldn't.
months,
I'm
there
right,
was,
Matt.
I'd
You
say
cannot
Kelsey
win.
won
Would you
that.
get out of here, please? Matt.
I'll see.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
So he did.
Those were fun days,
I
though.
just got word that Ace
Yeah.
did defeat Kid Kelsey on a disqualification. Kelsey, you were breaking rules.
I didn't reverse it. I was just saying that. I told him, I said, I'm just kidding. I just said that to him just to get him all
Ladies and
riled up,
gentlemen.
and it worked. Yeah, Kelsey. Real diehard, though, for the
Kelsey,
show at
we'll
that
have to
time.
do it in our
That
tag team.
was.
Oh, Kelsey. That was the referee's decision.
You see, that's
Oh,
the
ladies and
thing
gentlemen,
that
we're going to an interview.
a lot of people don't realize is all of us that were involved in the NWF for any length of time,
The Super D's.
we were diehard into it.
Oh, yeah.
Twins, of course.
I mean,
On the Peterson side, how do you guys? Oh,
you know,
pardon my voice here.
like you, I was raised in a single parent home.
You guys.
You know,
Do you
My
guys
parents got
really
divorced
think
when I
you'll
was
win
13.
against
So we had a family structure up till I was 13,
Dynamite
and then
Dude.
the divorce happened, and
and Kid Kelsey?
it was just
Well,
I mean, not Kid
like
Kelsey.
you.
Kelsey's brother.
yep. And I can remember, you know, my mom would go to bed and
Well, you
I'd
might
drag the
get
phone
it,
into
but
my
you're
bedroom
gonna get
because we had a
killed.
really long
What do you
cord,
think? I bet
Yeah.
you we will.
and
Bet.
we'd all be sitting on a conference call.
You guys don't have any spunk.
My mom would wake up. Are you guys still on the phone?
Okay, next we have
Dave, I'd be on the
Ladies and
phones
gentlemen,
with
welcome
guys from the
back. We just
show
got done
many
seeing that
times
wonderful
on school
Super
nights till
D's,
2 in the morning.
but we're all set
Devised
for our
league.
next match. This
Yeah.
match just
I
happens
was
to have
so
happens to have
these
a
days.
no disqualification and no time limit.
And as
Like
we
they
all
say, we've
were.
already broke
I
the
mean,
rule book in half. We're not using it. The
you
rule
really
book
felt
doesn't
like you're
consist
part of
this
something
match,
with this
but it
show, I
does
think,
consist of
back in the day.
Merciless Mike
Yeah,
Ackerman.
I mean,
Come on in
anybody
right
who's
now.
stuck around longer than a month.
Merciless Mike.
Yeah. And not everybody
Merciless
did.
Wrestling.
All I gotta say,
Fantastic.
A lot of
Peterson.
people came and went.
Dad.
This is on request.
I mean, I guess to some like you and Kelsey, I was a come and gone, but
No, I'm talking like they're on for a show or two and they're
Ringside
gone.
with
yeah.
USA
Never
Kelsey
hear or
and
see
Brett
them
Paul's
again.
Roberts.
And like Kelsey said, what did you
No time limit.
say? Ah, they just went to Japan.
No time limit, no rules.
You'd always
Yeah,
have
say
some
about
kind of
that.
storyline.
Well, I don't know.
So
how
this is the match,
started,
Dave. No disqualification
but
or
I
time
guess,
limit. Peterson's got a comb.
Last show when
He is hitting Mike with that comb.
Peterson
Ouch.
And
started interfering in a match.
It's no disqualification. So
And,
Peterson's
Mike requested
literally
it,
this has
so here it
become
is, and
this match
Michael
is
wins.
basically a shoot match
What do you have to say?
Right.
for purposes.
That's pretty wild, I must say. I've never heard much
So
like
Brian
that.
is so
Long
aggressive,
time.
and he's this is his.
Oh, this ought to
He
be
feels
a-
this is
a
his
true
opportunity
match
to
of
finally
strength,
get his
skill,
revenge on Mike
experience,
for all the
you
times.
name it.
know?
Since this is a no disqualification match, you will see some cheating on both parts. I know I could be in there at one point, so
And
taking on that ridiculous curly cue.
I'll tell you, Brian, he was a bull. He was
no,
a
Peter Pan
like I said, he was a
Peterson.
strong kid at that time. And
Oh, you see Pearson choking him. Anything goes here. Interference,
anything goes.
risking your life though between these.
He's
guys.
trying to get him down.
Got a
Yeah, he's
choke here,
choking
it's
him,
a
actually.
Legal move.
Yeah.
All the ref is in there for is
And-
submission and pinfall.
So it's no disqualification. So Peterson, he gets his hands on that
A
chair.
lot of kicking,
I
punching.
mean, you gotta watch for this one, Dave. It's
uh,
quite a.
weapons.
It's not like a massive.
Whatever they want
It's
to
not
use.
like a huge shot where it's gonna bust
Yes,
him open, but
and
it's a
he's-
good.
Peterson
It's
has
good.
that
You hear
comb.
it hit his head.
I don't know what to
Yep.
do. His hair's already messed with that frenzy. He looks like
That's the
some,
fact that he hit him with the other side of the chair is
I don't know,
think did
some
the
animal
most.
or something. There he hits Merciless with the comb, and there he's
So I
like,
finally got that comb out of the
Merciless
ring.
has a chokehold on him, and now I have comb, so Peterson can't get it. And they're and yep, by Bad Street
Mike was not no slouch either. Mike's a pretty tough kid too.
Poopa Bond or something like that. Babylon.
Cheer there.
You can just see the facial expressions. You can see that they are not playing around in this ring right now.
I don't know
for
who's
this
gonna use
match.
it, ever gets hold of it first. It's a pretty deadly weapon. You can injure somebody pretty bad with it.
Yes, the chair could cut somebody open and put them out of wrestling forever.
Why we did this match, I'm still look at Peterson
There he is,
wave for the
Betsy
chair.
Boulabon, whatever.
So now here we go.
Sure, right. Peterson got that chair. Here, give it to Mike. Give it to Mike. Give the corner.
Now notice how that's.
And he's gonna hit him. No. And
See how the chair is the wrong. Yeah, he just
no,
turned it the
there's
wrong
no
way.
qualification from the ref.
Yep.
Top edge.
And Peterson still has the chair.
Oh.
And now Mike has
Ouch.
some sort of-
Ouch.
Mike keeps blocking with the chair. Peterson's threatening, but threats don't.
Just looking at the way that he's holding it.
We got him once there.
Hit him with.
That was the one that did it, right there. And Mike's
head
finished at this point.
Pretty hard. with
Mike's
that
really
chair.
hurting on this one.
Ackerman now he's trying to squash him. Boy, Ackerman, somebody's gonna get killed here. Oh, Pearson whips the
You heard Mike tell him, you don't think you did.
chair out of the ring, being pulled out. What happened? Oh, that's the end of the
So
match.
Brian even is kind of like concerned a
Peterson
little
truth.
bit, I think. And then I'm in there checking him out too, and yeah, Mike was hurting on that.
that. Put out anybody.
So because of this incident, Dave, we initiated a new rule after this. If you bring a chair into the ring, you're automatically disqualified. We put a stop to the chairs.
Get some help in
Yep.
here from Mike.
At least it lasted for a little while anyway.
Bring in
Yeah.
the stretcher.
The Dynamite
A
Dude
little bit rough there, I guess.
and Rough Ryan, a new tag team.
Kind of brought the taping to a halt there for a minute.
Yeah.
What do you guys feel about these little Super Ds? I mean, you've wrestled them before. They're little wimps. I wrestled them twice, and I beat them both times I could have, but once the time ran out, I could have beat them.
Rough Ryan, Kid Kelsey's younger brother.
Yep.
What do you think about this, Dynamite? Well, they're little, just, like pipsqueaks. Not like this Andre the Giant that thinks he's Muscle Man.
Dynamite Dude's Madman Nash's younger brother.
Okay, so these guys are new. Dynamite's probably been in the longest out of the little leagues.
Dynamite in for
How
a
do you
long
feel
time.
about having being
Dynamite was around in our
tag team
basement
partners with
days,
Dynamite
dude.
too? Was a good tag team partner, and we'll win them. We'll just grind them into the ground. Okay, thank you.
Dynamite was pretty good on the mic,
I
but
know that.
Ryan, I
Me
mean, a
and
lot
I
of us can
take
use
the
work, I
tag
think.
team championship because I am I'm the lightweight champion. Okay, thank you.
Dynamite saying that he can't get the lightweight tag belts because he's the lightweight champion.
Gentlemen, you just seen an interview with the newest tag team in the NWF, CJ Superstud and Rough Ryan. Speaking of CJ Superstud, he just happens to be in the match that we're gonna be showing you right now. Entering the ring. First, though,
As we've discussed before, going back to Gizmo's question for me,
Super D1.
I would have stuck around with the NWF longer, but, powers that be that were trying to take over the NWF wanted to get rid of a lot of people.
Right.
And I'm not talking about Crusher Crossen.
No, I know who you're referring to. Another comment from Gizmo. He says, Crusher, he goes, this episode really showcased your action in front and behind the camera. I am not sure if the NWF would have taken off with any wrestler. You seem very mature for your age at that time. Yeah, I mean, he's right. You Andrew Mace was on the guest with this. He kind of echoed that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, even when I knew you back then, it was like, he's got to be older than.
I think that's why the Armory didn't question me when I wanted to rent it. Honestly, Dave, they didn't ask me about age when I went in there to do the Armory.
Yep.
I was just so like when I went into the Armory to talk to that drill sergeant about it. It was just professional about it.
Right.
I said, hey, we have a show. We're doing this. We've been around for 2 years. We'd like to do an event here. And I remember that drill sergeant. He was some old guy, and he treated me like an adult.
It's Super D1.
Really did.
Choking him. Ref breaks
But
it.
yeah, I mean,
Then it was down. Super D1.
yeah, it definitely takes somebody in the leadership position of something like this to really be committed for the long haul. That's why there's been a lot of kids, Dave, I think, that have tried to do these kind of things that we did, but it just doesn't. It's either one-off deals or it doesn't last.
Right.
And that's really the difference between what we did and what others have tried to do that's been similar. Not that I discredit any of those guys for trying. Dave, even back in these days, I would have loved there to be another kids or wrestling organization out there somewhere.
Right. I agree. I mean,
whenever champions go back and forth, I mean, there'd be all sorts of things we could do.
Thank you, Ref Ryan, for some good commentary. Back to the match again.
But as we were stating earlier, it's hard to get TV now for a show.
Like if you were going to do it today, you'd have to look at. You can't go with community access. That's dead. What you got to do is you got to start looking at what other people would watch. YouTube, the internet. You got to go that route, and you got to somehow get noticed.
Right. I mean,
there's so many of them out there trying to do that.
Well, it's like right now.
Midsection.
We've got 2 indie federations here in the state of Minnesota that I know of.
Yeah.
And, he whips
And
him out of the ring onto that hard cement
I wouldn't
floor.
know how to watch either one of them.
Should be hurting. Dynamite Dude comes out.
Yeah,
Tries
it's
to
hard
go
for them
and
to get a
whips the rest
following
down.
today.
Tries
Part
to
of it's
pull him
because
back
they're
up
not
there.
marketing themselves properly on
Ref
social
starts
media.
counting,
That's
he whips
half
him
the
back
problem.
in viciously.
Right.
Social media, you got to market yourself for it. You know, when I
Well-
did my fucking DVD, Dave, I marketed it. I put myself in ad placements
you see
all
that?
over
Wow,
the
what a
internet to
move.
get noticed. You got to do that kind of thing.
Oh, how
Well, you know,
did he
it's
get up
like-
from that?
The band that we get our intro music from,
Elbow
you
drop
know,
in midsection.
their following has come
Super D is
from
wasted.
the internet.
Yeah.
And
those
they have a-
those who know how to do social marketing will be effective with that. These
Right.
indie
Super D
people you're
tries to
talking
roll out of the
about
way and
don't
trips
have
up
any
Dynamite
marketing
Dude.
social. You know, they're old school guys like us running it. They don't understand the social media. The
Super
only reason
D's
I'm kind of familiar with
does a little
social media is because I
offense on
got to go
himself
through that
there.
with my video degree that I got about 10 years
Will be
ago,
enough, though. He
and
tries to
we
pick him
cover
up.
social media. So I kind of got a little taste of it from there. But
Versus
you know, when
him,
you're
way
at our age,
back.
sometimes you don't understand the ins and outs of social
Gotta
media
be
and how
hurt.
that works as far as getting noticed, getting
That's the end of the
views, and
match.
all that kind of stuff. So, all right, Dynamite Dude wins the match.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, your winner of your match with about 3
I'll
minutes
tell
into
ya.
the match, CJ Superstar.
In that match, you notice how Troy Wazowski got brought back in the ring super and he hit his head on that stage. He hit that head pretty hard
You know what
in
I
that
was gonna
match we
say,
just
but
watched.
I
Another
would take
rough
on
one.
both of those in a handicap match, just me against both of them.
Well, maybe we can do it next show. I don't know.
And I think we did do that
We'll get
match.
him next show. It'll be a while before we start
Following show.
doing our shows again. We have to move to a different studio. Oh, anyways, the next first of all, we'll be back with the next match. Roughhouse Roberts versus Fantastic Peterson. But first, let's go to an exclusive interview.
Out of Minneapolis.
Another interview?
Rough Ryan.
Rough Ryan? Or no.
Okay. Start it over. Okay. We have out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, Roughhouse Roberts.
So Chuck Roberts, the kid who literally beat Ace for the title a few shows from here. Or actually, the next show.
Okay, giving a little word to the
Our next
audience.
taping,
Can't be
okay.
little guys. Okay.
Chuck was a strong kid.
Let's see here. How do you feel about now that you've been in the NWF for a while? How do you feel?
Late Chuck Roberts. He passed away about 20 years ago.
It's pretty good when I first came here. Now, Peterson and his family, low buck.
You know, it's always sad to hear
Okay,
about
we have a match with
somebody
Peterson.
dying young.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very young. 32, I think he was.
compared to him.
Pretty good. I've had a little more experience. I know Peterson's pretty good, but I think I should handle him pretty good.
When you first came in, were you afraid of Peterson because of his size?
Not really. Size doesn't really mean much. I might be a little quicker than him. Weight advantage is fairly the same.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, he was a
Ladies
tough
and
competitor,
gentlemen,
Chuck was.
Just got back seeing that interview there with Roughhouse Roberts. He'll be wrestling right now. He's
So if
gonna
there's
be
somebody that
going
can handle Peterson, it's definitely
the
Chuck
man who will
Roberts.
be fined for
Exactly.
the actions with Merciless Mike. Merciless Mike has been sent to the hospital. We just got word he's on his way back now, but he had to go to the hospital. Minor concussion on the scene, and I'll tell you what, there was no fakeness. I get mad when people say that. But how
There you
fake.
go, Dave.
He went to Mercy.
We always hated people thinking it was fake, and
Anyways,
just pointing out there was
guys,
nothing
let me
fake
introduce
there
the
when Mike got
match.
hit with that
Ladies
chair.
and gentlemen, entering the ring first, from New York.
Well, I mean, even you have to admit it's
Roberts.
after, you know, your years in the ring, my
Okay.
time in the ring, the aches and pains that we wake up
Weighing in at
with,
120 pounds.
Yeah.
Next, weighing in at 170
it gets kind of
pounds.
frustrating when people say that nasty F word.
Fantastic
It's not
Peterson
as much
from
now.
Orlando,
It was
Florida.
much more of a thing
Sorry,
back
that's what I'm
then.
just doing what the
Right.
card says, just
People
doing what the card
understand, I
says.
think, today
Orlando, Florida.
the
Well,
the, you know,
5-minute time limit. And
the
let's
fact
let
that
this
there's
one be a
that's not
decent
no
match.
picnic, right? But back in these days, Yeah, they just wanted to label you a fake. You're on that fake show. You're just a fake.
Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, with Rough
So
Hall.
Brian, he's nice and calm, and then he just goes. He's just like a bull, and Chuck
You
takes
see
him right out of the
Ruffles
ring.
getting that
Oh
some
man,
kind of
these guys are gonna get pretty rough here, from what I remember.
arm bar on.
But it's Chuck knows how to wrestle, so he just controls Brian pretty
What do you have to say about Rough?
pretty easily, really.
Right.
Rough House could be Peterson
But-
any day if he didn't have to use this. Weasel.
But Brian is
He's part of the Weasel family,
pushover.
as I call him. That's where it's from. Rough Ryan. You see them break.
yeah. These matches, they're really competitive.
A
Very
kick to
competitive
midsection.
in these
Peterson's got some in
the end of these
Takes
Group
him
W
down.
studios tapings. You know, even though these aren't technically shoots, they
whip to
kind
the
of
wall.
are.
Clotheslines them.
You know, not completely. I'd say a match like this is a mix between working and being a
Choke
shoot.
with the foot.
It's kind of a give and take, shoot plus work.
One count.
You know, it's while the NWF was still finding their identity.
Yeah, it was like we've said forever, Dave. The NWF was an
This
evolution.
ref is a
You
good
know, we
friend of mine.
grew
I
from
asked
bed
Trisha
mattress
if he
stuff
could. Ref during
through these
the show, he's
days,
doing pretty
through
good.
the garage days,
Like
through the
the
Fred
way
Moore
he's
days,
walking,
to the
he's breaking
armory
out
stuff. I mean,
cold when
and
they
that was a
shoot.
gradual
He's doing pretty
growth
Yep.
They thought
and
two
development.
count. Words from Rough Ryan.
And believe me when I tell you, the wrestling, the professional wrestling,
Forearm to the midsection.
does get better
Another forearm.
in the latter days of the league.
Choke.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, just like when you first enter into a training camp, you know,
Foot to the midsection.
first few days, they may stretch you just to see if you're going to stick it
Foot to the
out.
ropes. Rough House
Right, which is
tried.
why, like we talked about it last week, when people came on our
He fell
show,
down.
we threw them in the ring.
Rough's
Yeah.
calling for a break.
We didn't train them. We just put them in there. Much like they do in a wrestling camp when you want to first try to be a wrestler. Just throw you in the ring or
I know
start
I
giving
do
you
that
bumps,
when I
see if
say
you can
something.
take it. And that was our
Later
thinking
on.
too.
Well, before in the show,
Because you gotta be able to handle Brian
Grind
Peterson and
them into the ground.
Tim
You
Holland
wrestled
and
Super D.
you
One
know.
was it? Well, later on, they, yeah.
And there were guys that literally wouldn't want to wrestle people like Tim or
After
oh yeah,
this
the
match,
Barbarians because
I
they could
wrestled
get
Super
rough.
D too.
You know, Jerry wasn't as
Yeah,
rough
I'm
as
gonna
Tim
kick
was,
his butt
but
too.
they were rough.
That's
Oh,
what
yeah.
I want to say.
Ring Warriors, Chuck Roberts
2
here, and
minutes
his
left in this
partner
match.
Todd Chester that he'd get later on. They were also a rough
Peterson
team,
has some kind of
much like the
like
Barbarians.
scorpion or something put onto him.
Yeah,
that would have been a good matchup.
Brian Peterson was rough, man. He was. It was never when you had a match with Brian, it was never easy going.
No.
It was rough.
Forearm
It was
to the back
intense.
again and again.
And he's obviously not full force, but he's just very aggressive.
Puts him in the full Nelson. This
That
is
was
a submission
Tim.
Hold.
You know,
And Brian was big on like submissions, full Nelsons, figure four leg locks. He did a lot of that.
Doesn't submit. Takes him down to the mat. The ref's asking for a submission hold. Whoa.
All right, Dave, another comment here for you.
Ruffles.
Okay, Dixie
holding
Dave,
him.
how was it working for Crusher? It's been many years now, so give us the juicy gossip.
Peterson
What was the
grabs
real
him for some
Crusher?
Safety.
All right, Dave, there you go. That's your platform.
Pulling up some hair.
okay, the real crusher.
1 minute left in this match.
If I may say, what you see is what you get.
Oh, what kind? Some kind of
You know,
breaker.
I mean, Crusher Crossen
On the ropes.
is really no different than his real life personality. Just it's his personality amped up a little bit. You know,
Was I hard on you at all? Was I ever?
I wouldn't say. I mean,
Did I throw you into matches that you wished you had never been in?
5, 4, 3.
Oh, I just wanted to be in the ring.
1.
You know.
Bell.
Yeah.
To be honest, I didn't care who I was in the ring with. I didn't care if I was going over or if I was putting somebody over. I just wanted to be in the ring.
Was there ever a time, though, I think what he's kind of asking is, was there ever a time that I
just got informed the time limit.
did anything that you didn't agree with
We have a draw.
on the show, or something that you
draw.
felt could have been done differently?
Both men, no winner. No winners, no losers.
Not that I can think of. I mean,
Okay. Okay. We'll be right back.
Well,
We're gonna
let's
do
be
an
obvious.
interview with
Should have
Kid
never sold it
Chelsea
to.
right now.
well,
We'll be
yeah.
right back.
I mean, I was speaking while I was in the,
Chelsea is sorted by
Right.
Treasure Crossen.
you know,
Should have never merged with Larry in the NCWA.
We're the Rock and
yeah.
Roll
I mean, aside from that obvious
The
factor,
Rock and Roll Express. And this guy, I've been putting him through everything that a man.
you know, who knows if you went to
He's
sold out
ready
to,
for anything.
or went to merged with Larry, you know.
Ridiculous, fantastic Peterson or whatever. Our killer camp has a match with the
Yeah,
killer.
I mean,
He does.
man, if we could have got Troy's pole barn secured a few years earlier. that
Oh
would-
yeah.
The reason I haven't been here.
You know, Gizmo, I'm not just saying this because Crusher's here right now.
And
Yeah.
Campa,
I'm being 100% real. I mean,
I've chased you all around this.
Yeah, I
game,
get it
and
though.
it's not
I
very
can see
fun.
where somebody would think that.
And Campa,
I mean, being 100% real.
This is gonna be the last time you ever.
I've now known Crusher on and off for 37 years.
You heard from a tough man.
And, you know, the man I talk to off camera is pretty much the same as the guy you see on camera.
You know, it's funny. Like Gizmo makes. This is a good point that Gizmo makes. When I did the Untold Story documentary, and I actually had a guy that was the interviewer, and he went with the camera crew, and he went to interview all the guys that you've seen in that documentary. The one thing that I, first of all, when that happened, I was producing that whole documentary, but I didn't let any of the guys that were being interviewed know that I was behind it. In other
Right.
words, they went out and did those interviews. I didn't even go with them. They went out and did those interviews, and I made sure that they didn't mention that I was behind the project. And I did that because I didn't want those guys sugarcoating any answers. I wanted them to answer everything without any worry that I would be behind it. And then they would try to be sugar. You know what I mean by sugar-coated answers, Dave?
You know, they didn't want to worry about repercussions
or any of that. So I made sure that that's how I did that documentary with those interviews. So all those, you know, comments and stuff from those guys on the Untold Story, that was, you know, they didn't know it was me behind the project. So they were answering very truthfully. And that's what he means by this. He just means that it's, you know, when I'm here, obviously, I get what Gizmo's saying here. You know.
You know, if I could be 100% real for a second here, you know, Sean Crossen and Crusher Crossen, you know, they're so much the same person, you never know who you're talking to. You know, I mean, being 100% real, they're, you know, I work overnights, and sometimes I do a part-time gig after my overnight job. And there's many a times, you know, Crusher and I'll talk earlier in the day, and I'll say, hey, you know, call me at such and such time just to make sure I'm up for the show. And I'll get a phone call. First thing I hear when I answer the phone is Crusher Crossen wake up service.
Yeah. And Dave, I forgot. I was going to show this earlier, but I forgot. I don't want to forget. The belt has arrived to me personally.
Ooh.
If you can see, is that coming in good? Because I can't. So
Oh, yeah.
big. This is the NWF United States Heavyweight Champion. This is the belt that Mr. Macho designed back in the day.
Yep.
And this is a big belt. This is inmate big. And very cool belt. And I really like the embossed NWF logo. Kind of hard to see it, but
Yeah.
there. Kind of embossed right there. And this is a heavy belt, Dave. But yeah, very cool belt, right? And like this is one of the last belts we're getting. Well, not the last, one of the last we're getting replicated. And that was Mike Whaley's design, Mr. Macho. He designed it originally, and I just got it, dressed it up a little bit and got it replicated. So cool belt.
Damn it! Now I got to wait a couple months.
Yeah. And it's been fun replicating those NWF belts that we had back in the mid '80s. Getting them done professionally, it's been a lot of fun doing that. And of course, I like that belt, but the NWF blue belt back there, that world title, that's my all-time favorite when it comes to NWF belts.
Well, we all have our own favorites. I mean,
Speaking of favorites, I see one on the right above your shoulder there. That has to be your favorite.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it may be one of the smaller NWF belts, but it holds a near and dear spot in my heart.
Yeah. So what did you think of this show, Dave? Group W cable taping with those kind of rough matches.
It kind of makes me glad I was part of the NWF when I was. Once it got polished up a little bit. And
I'll tell you, the roughness, though, continued into the garage.
right.
The difference, though, with the garage and Group W is the ring itself was the ropes were completely workable with turnbuckles.
Right.
That was a plus. So then we could actually hit the ropes and start to learn to hit the ropes properly. And it's funny, the Super Ds, when we eventually got the real ring, the real professional ring, when the Super Ds would hit the ropes, they'd be hitting the first and second ropes because that's how tall they were. So
Yep.
that's where they would hit. They wouldn't get to that top rope.
Well, as I remember, there were some matches where I barely made it to the top rope.
Well, Jamie missed it completely at the dry dock and almost flipped out of the ring and got hung up on the ropes. So
Yep.
I'll tell you, when we watched that show, Jamie and I watched that show a few weeks ago, and he's still embarrassed about that happening. Oh, Jamie, what a character! Such a good character for us.
Oh yeah.
So Dave, I'm gonna kind of go on this. When Gizmo was asking, who's the real Crusher. The way I was, okay, so when you're running a league like this, and I learned this as I did it, you have to be the social center point of the league. So I have to have conversations with everybody to keep them in the league.
Right.
So to keep that bond of unity with all of us. So I would be on calls with you, Dave. I'd be on calls with just about everybody that was on the show regularly. And I'd stay constant, I was that social butterfly, and that's what you had to be. Because if you distance yourself from anyone, they're going to feel left out.
Right.
So that was my mindset.
I always joke around that, I wasn't part of the inner workings, but, you tried your best to make sure everybody knew that they had their place. NWF was their home.
Don't misunderstand that, though, for me being like kind of light or easygoing, because I could be very direct, and if you cross me on something, I'm gonna tell you. If you screw up, I'm gonna tell you.
Yep.
It wasn't like I just was a pushover, but socially, I wanted to make sure I was very accessible.
And when he says screw up, it's not like if you accidentally botch a spot in the ring, he'd jump down your throat. It would have to be like you take your skills in the ring outside of the ring to somebody who's not involved in the NWF.
Yeah. or if you don't show up when you could have.
Yeah.
That was my big stickler with me. We had, this is what happened with Rob Jacob. These Group W days, he and I were clashing a little bit, but then he decides he's just not going to show up because he didn't want to. He could have made it. He just didn't want it. It was his way of trying to get back at me for something that we crossed on the show before or whatever.
Yep.
But you not showing up to a taping, that was the one thing I wouldn't tolerate. And when you could make it.
And to be honest, by not showing up, it's not so much you're hurting the show. You're hurting yourself.
Right. Yeah, basically.
I mean, if you don't show up for a show.
Well, it hurts the league.
It hurts the league to an extent, but, this is going to sound callous the way I'm wording it, but I don't mean it in a callous way. But somebody not showing up to a show can be worked around.
No, but it's the fact that we had plans and we had because I'll get to that in a minute, Dave, but I want to get to this comment. Crusher, were you more like a father figure, or I think it means a big brother to the other wrestlers? I wasn't a father figure.
No, I'd say more of a big brother, keeping everybody in line type.
Yeah, more of that, but not really a big brother. More like I guess I can a little bit of a big brother, but more of a. They knew I was in charge, right? Everybody knew I was running it.
Yeah.
There wasn't any It wasn't like I was not disciplinary with it, because I was. We did suspensions for real. I suspended Chris Downs, the Ice Dragon. That's why he's not on the October card.
That's how I got my title shot.
He got suspended because he was pulling stuff with the guys off the show, and so that's what we would do. I would do suspensions for real when people got out of line. And that always hurt because everybody wanted to be on the show, especially a big card at the Armory.
Yeah.
So you get suspended. I knew that would hurt, so that's why I would do it.
I don't think I initially was booked for the October Armory card.
No, but you got into that role. But no, you were talking about guys not showing up, right?
Yeah.
I would get mad when that happens because so the way it worked when I would do these schedule this stuff, like when we do a taping, I would send letters out a week before, or I'd have to literally call every wrestler and say, okay, we got a taping at Group W Cable on March 16th. Next week on Saturday from this time, can you make it? Yes or no? Okay, you can? All right, I got you down. And I would make those calls to everybody, figure out who we had, then start figuring out the card, booking the cards, this guy against this guy, I get it all lined up. Then when we go to the taping, we only have 3 hours blocked. So we've got to nail this out. And somebody doesn't show up.
Then you got to complete it.
We got to change it. We got to figure it out. We got to build it. And we don't have time for that, Dave, on a 3-hour block.
Right.
So that's why I would get so mad. That's why I got so mad at Rob when he could have made it, didn't. And so, yeah.
And how many times did you get a no from me that I wouldn't be there?
Well, no, I'm just saying, though, when a guy doesn't show up, especially – now, if they have an excuse, that's one thing. But especially when you told me you were going to be there and then you didn't show.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a stickler for me.
It's
any promoter, really. Right?
It's like I said, when I went to Florida over the summer that year.
You told me you were going to be gone for the summer.
Yep, I told you I was going to be gone, and I was like, gee, am I even going to have a spot to come back to? As much as this thing's growing, am I going to have a spot to come back to?
But that's given notice.
Yeah.
That's going to Japan for a tour. That's like, that's what we'd say on the show. If Dixie Dave was gone, he was just in Japan. But having notice is different. I'm talking about when you no-show.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like, and then I find out that you could have made it with Rob. That's what really, But even though I was mad and I fired him from the show for that, well, I actually suspended him for 5 shows and he quit. That's how it really went. But even though I did that, I still regret it because at the time I didn't see the bigger picture and that we really lost a very talented kid.
Yep.
And that was Rob. I wish I had more footage of him because remember that he was on a lot of the Group W stuff with just the stage, and I never saved that. But if you could have seen the entire evolution of him, I mean, he was so talented for us at that time frame, and so many ideas behind the scenes that he was good at coming up with. But Rob was stubborn. He was very stubborn, and if he didn't get his way, he would be that's where me and him butted heads. When he had an idea and I had an idea and we would butt heads, that's what happened with Rob and I. That's what was leading up to our tensions.
Yeah.
This was in the Group W cable days. Mike Ackerman, that's a whole other discussion as far as what happened with him and why I fired him from the show. And that's a whole other, reasoning there. But
that's the one thing I would say back in the NWF is that Sean could be stubborn.
Yeah, there's I won't deny that. I was set in my ways. That's for sure.
But
you got to be though running it away. You got to kind of have that. You can't be open to everything.
Right.
But open-minded enough to at least listen to everybody. And I felt I did a good job of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I told you about Jamie wanting to join, You're like, bring him down.
No, it was an open door. So for everybody watching that says, gosh, I wish I could have been a part of this show when I was at that age. If you were in Minnesota, you could have been a part of the show. We didn't say no to anyone that was a kid, basically, that wanted to come on.
You walked in the door and first you called the hotline, and after you called the hotline, then you'd be told where to show up. And
yeah. I talked about there was a lot of one and dones. People would come and they never show up again. The next show we do the first show we do in my garage, we had a kid from Minneapolis, our first Minneapolis kid that called the hotline and wanted to join. His name was Glenn. I forget the last name. Bullet Shot was his wrestling name, and his parents brought him. And they stayed to watch because they had to bring him home.
Yeah.
And there's a classic example of one and done. Not because his parents thought it wasn't good. He just,
he tried it and decided it wasn't for him.
Probably wasn't for him. He just never came back again to do it. So on this taping we just watched, on the next show that we do there, because we did 2 shows that day, there was another guy by the name of, I don't remember his real name, but his wrestling name was Ghetto Blaster. Brian brought him in. Never seen Ghetto Blaster again. So there was a lot of those where kids would come and they'd be on the show and then be off. Never hear them again. Or hear from them.
Yep. It's like Engstrom said. He thought I was going to be a one and done, but
Steve Engstrom. A lot of people, when they've seen the documentary and they they read the book and they think, well, they was the adult that tried to take it over. And yeah, he was part of that. But the other thing, and I did write about this in my book, and I did talk about it in the documentary, is Steve brought things to the show that were very critical in developing it.
Yep.
And I'm not just talking about the great belts he made. All these belts are replicating that were his designs, and they were, most of them. But the technical ability in the ring that Steve naturally had, literally. Steve was a natural. And And that technical ability really rubbed off on a lot of us.
Yeah.
The bumping, all of it. Steve's involvement there was pretty good. You know, it really helped us grow the wrestling. And when we do the July card coming up here, in the week of July, last week or whatever, Steve is going to be a guest with us again. And wait till you see the match he and I had at the Armory if you've never seen that one. That was a Broadway time limit draw, but you talk about giving him everything but the kitchen sink in a match. It wasn't on the same level as a Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat being technically savvy, but it was an entertaining match that went the distance with lots of good moves, and not just spot monkey type situations, but just a good back and forth match.
Right. Not a lot of rest. You know, it wasn't just, I've seen Broadways where it's nothing but rest holds.
Right. And they just milk it.
Yeah.
They milk it out. And so having Steve on for that one to be able to talk about that as we go would be a real treat for everybody to hear both of our comments on that. And then for all you guys watching, you want to have questions for Steve, he's willing to answer. So any questions for Steve Engstrom, you know, with all the controversy and everything.
You know, the only thing I will say is you never know who you're going to get to have answer it.
Mr. X, Pretty Boy Taylor, or Steve Engstrom?
Exactly.
Yep.
I mean, I will forewarn you, you may get an answer in Pretty Boy mode.
Yep. He's I'll tell you though, Steve was the kind of guy back in the day that Steve could sell you beach property in Kansas. He had the gift of bullshit.
As a lot of us did.
As a lot of us did. But Steve, though, he could sell you. And that's another good trait of a wrestler's, you know, because you got to have that in you too. And
I mean, come on, Crusher. You got to admit, we all had the gift of BS. I mean, hell, I sold you on doing this podcast.
Yeah, that was Dave's idea. I wasn't ready to do a podcast. I didn't even know all the stuff, how it worked, you know. But then when Dave put the bug in my ear and then I started looking at it, I'm like, yeah, we could do something like that. And I thought it would be fun I hope everybody's enjoying us talking along with the shows, because we can give you the behind the scenes and the insights. And every now and then we have the guests come in and then we get the third perspective as well. And, you know, it's always fun. We do have some guests, Dave, that are on the horizon. You know, Terry Kosnapple is going to come on with us fairly soon, and the Destructors as well. And, you know, we're always open to new guests. So anybody watching, any NWF alumni out there, you're all welcome to come on the show. You just have to get a hold of us. And we're not hard to get a hold of.
Nope. I mean, Crusher's got his social media platforms. I've got mine.
Yeah.
And to the alumni, I'm right here, damn near in the same area I was in 37 years ago.
Yeah, up in Coon Rapids. Of course, I'm in Salt Lake City, but I will be making a trip over that way.
Yep, for our August special.
For our August special Armory card. We hope to, Dave's still got to check out with the Armory, but we're hoping to do our podcast live and out front of the Anoka Armory for that one.
Exactly.
So that'll be kind of fun. And who knows who might join us for as live guests, I guess you could say, for that show. So maybe Mr. X or Pretty Boy Taylor might want to fly in from Vegas for that one even. Who knows?
Yep.
So
or you never know. I mean, who knows? We may be down there doing the podcast, and we may get a guest appearance by Anoka County's finest.
But as long as we have the okay, we'll be fine.
Yep.
So, and if we can't do it in front of the Armory, we'll find somewhere else to do it live in person. But
you know, I mean, to the alumni, I've stated this before. You know, Crusher coming to the Twin Cities. I'd love to have a get together with a lot of the old alumni. You know, whether we were the same era NWF or different eras, it'd be great to have a get together and just hang out. Because to the alumni, Crusher and I have some stuff in the works.
Yeah.
And we'd love to get ideas from other alumni.
Yeah. But I'm thinking, like, for next week, Dave, you know, we just did Group W Cable. I'm thinking next week we should probably pay a visit to Fred Moore. We haven't done a Fred Moore show in a while.
Oh, Fred Moore always hurts.
Yeah. But, I mean, thinking a Fred Moore episode might be in store for next week, maybe. And then the following week in July, Dave will be running that show that week, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be in the Dayton studios for that one.
Right.
So
as I said, folks, pray for me. I'm not the tech-savvy person Crusher is.
But hopefully everybody will join in and give you lots of questions, and you can kind of interact with the fans.
Exactly.
More that way. We always like asking questions. In fact, if anybody has any questions right now, feel free to ask, because we love it.
I mean, we've got 6 people in here. You know, tomorrow's my day off from my full-time job. So as long as you guys are asking questions, we'll stick around and we'll talk with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and no questions out of bounds. So anything you want to ask, whether it's about Steve or Larry or what all happened with that stuff, or the new NWF that took over, the old NW, you know, when they kind of took it over from us. Gizmo says, I thought tonight's matches seemed very high energy and exciting. This was one of the better events that the NWF put out. Thanks again for a great night. Well, thank you, Gizmo. We appreciate it.
If I'm correct, Gizmo, you seem to like some of the older stuff.
Everybody has their preference, right?
Yep.
There's people that like it when we're more polished, doing more professional style wrestling. Then there's other people that like the very, very early rough and tough tumble stuff, you know? So
right.
I think what they like about these early days, Dave, is
the competitive.
It was a fake kids wrestling show, yes. But those matches didn't always appear to be fake.
Right.
And I can tell you firsthand, they weren't always fake, especially the title matches.
Exactly.
And even when it was a non-title match, somebody like Ace, who's used to being in a shoot defending the title, when it's non-title, he doesn't really know the difference or treat it as such. So that's where you get that high energy. And, you know, Peterson was always high energy. Yeah, I wished you could have been a part of that, Dave. I can just tell you with Brian Peterson, the reason you get so mad is because Brian would find out something about you personally.
Right.
When he would find that out, he would bring it up in a live interview in the ring, and we always do those little interviews before the match, and he would bring it up and tell it and try to just get right under your skin right during the show live. And man, it would become very personal with Brian. So those of us who weren't afraid to step up to him, and I wasn't, I would get right in his face. We would do it. A lot of guys were intimidated by Brian. You know, he's just so big and strong, and like Ace commented on it, right? It was kind of hard to tangle with Brian.
Right.
Big, strong kid.
Well, I mean, even like Tim Holland, that's why I was asking if they ever crossed paths back in the day.
Yeah, they really didn't. Tim didn't really have anybody that got rough with him or anything like that. Tim, but you know, yeah, Tim was like that, but Tim wasn't. Tim would work a match.
Right.
I mean, even the match I had with Thandar, we had our egos were sky high, both of us, going into this match. And we worked, but we worked intensely. We worked rough. And
Right.
it could have been a better match had we just worked properly. But because our egos were clashing, it was
Well, if I remember correctly, at that point in time, when you guys had that match, you were the world heavyweight champion.
and he was the world tag.
Yep. You know, hence the egos. I mean, Conan and Thandar had a good run so far as tag champs.
Yeah.
You were on a good tear with the world title. You know, obviously you're both going to feel like you should go over the other one, so.
And even though it was, you know, it was rough, the match was entertaining. It was a fun match to watch. I remember when that match aired, Greg Bushman was my technical director. And so when we do like the Saturday afternoon specials and all those other talk shows we did for the NWF,
Yep.
he was the director. And anyways, we had just aired that show, and I was on the phone with Greg talking about the next Saturday afternoon special. It's like, oh man, my friend just said he watched that show that you had in that match with you and Thandar. He said that was awesome. So here's some other, I don't even know who he is, that talked to Greg Bushman, and it was really entertaining with that match. I mean, we were just talking.
Right.
So it, you know, yeah, it was entertaining, but it could have been better had we worked properly. When I mean properly, like really get a good finish done.
Right.
Our finish was muddy, but and I wished I would have kept all those Saturday afternoon specials and Monday Night Madness. We did 2 shows, Dave. We did a Monday Night Madness, that's what we called it. We did it on Mondays, and we did Saturday afternoon specials, and they were both kind of the same show. It was a talk show. It was like a we'd have wrestlers as guests, and we did like the Tuesday Night Titans type thing that they would do back.
Right.
And it was very entertaining, fun show, and I wish I would have kept that stuff. And I didn't keep it. By the way, another thing people are probably wondering that looked at our catalog, you'll notice, like somebody pointed out last week, there's this huge gap in shows in the studio days, right? Group W.
Right.
Where I explained why we don't have all those episodes. Well, if you look at our show episodes, you'll notice there's another big gap. Show 80, like from show 81 through I think 90 is missing. And so everybody's like, well, what happened to those shows? What those shows were, well, 2 of them were the Sandberg shows, right? The Sandberg Middle School taping that we lost through going to cable companies and circulating our tapes.
Right.
That tape vanished. I wish I would have had that one still. That was a fun show. But all those other shows, though, those 10 shows, the reason we don't have them is because at the time we didn't have anywhere to go with the ring to set up to make actual matches for that 2 months leading up to the October card.
Right.
So, but what we did is we still had to make shows for the cable, slots. So what we did, we just rehashed all old footage with new interviews every week, building up that October card. So that's what all those shows were. They were just, and me again, my thinking is, well, I don't need to keep these. These aren't any, there's no new wrestling here. What do I want to keep these for? All it is just interviews building up the October card. I really wished I would have kept those shows, Dave, because all those interviews.
Hindsight being 2020, Crusher.
I mean, we had Terry Kosnopple in there doing interviews. You were there. We had all the guys doing really good promo work at that time, and I didn't keep any of it.
Well, that's where we came up with the pictures for the national tag title.
Yep. Yeah, it was from one. It was, yeah, from, we had to take screenshots to figure out how those belts looked. Yeah. But yeah, that's been a fun show though, and hope everybody enjoyed it tonight. Like I said, next week we'll probably revisit the Fred Moore Junior High taping back in the dungeon. On that very fun ring.
The ring from hell.
Yeah. The ring that put the Tokyo Terror out of the show.
The ring that gave me the back problems I have now.
And that gave Steve a slip disc on a couple occasions.
Yep.
Yep. I tell you, for kids, we sure paid the price on some of these.
You know, I think that's one reason why I get so irritated when people call it fake. You know, I mean, I would have liked to have seen any of these people that call it fake take a bump in that ring.
Yeah. You know, and I guess, you know, we talked about how I was in touch with Vern Gagne. I mentioned at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
And, you know, all throughout the years, I kept touching base with the AWA. I'd never get to talk to Vern directly. I'd always be talking to his agent. Roy Nelson was his name.
Right.
And Roy was very, I mean, he was very nice. He was always complimentary. He never said, don't do this anymore. You guys shouldn't do this. He was never that kind of message with Roy. It was always, okay, sounds good. And I'd tell him about we're doing it in Oka Armory cars, and they go, yeah, that's good. Yeah, keep us posted. He was always, he'd always end the call with, well, feel free to call any other time and tell us what you're up to next. He'd always end the calls like that. So, you know, the AWA never did. I was really hoping they'd bring us on one of the local interviews segments.
Right. That was the big dream.
That was the dream. But, you know, then I look at it today and I think, well, Vern at that time in '86 was really competing with McMahon, and the last thing he had time to deal with would have been us.
Right.
And I totally get it. So, same time though, Vern turned a blind eye to a lot of things that he could have got on us for.
Oh yeah.
And another thing I learned, Dave, is Vern gave the okay to KSTP to use AWA footage in that news report they did.
Yep.
Larry Burnett told me that years later. So if Vern didn't like what we were doing, he would have said, no, Larry, I don't want you using that footage tied with the story.
You know,
so
in all honesty, if Vern didn't like what we were doing, he could have put a kibosh on us in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But I honestly think he respected what we were doing, how we were so dedicated to the business. And honestly, I'd like to believe that he potentially saw us as a potential training ground for him.
Or maybe somebody down the road. But, you know, and that's our opinion, of course, guys, but we don't know for sure. But I'd have to think you're right, Dave. Part of him is saying, kids, don't try this at home. We know that. But another side of Vern is saying, you got to admire what these kids are doing.
They're trying to be professional about it. They're trying to.
Especially when we were doing the Armory shows and everything.
Yeah.
Part of him had to feel that way, and that's probably why he just let us do our own thing.
Yeah. Because, I mean, at one point, Vern was an upstart company.
Yeah, everybody starts some way, and everybody gets in the business differently, too. And, you know, the fact that we were polished enough where Eddie Sharkey took notice should tell you everything. You know,
well, I mean, Crusher, let's be honest here. Okay, was it that we were so polished, or was it we had the crowd attraction?
It was both.
You know, and Eddie wanted in on our money.
We were polished enough for Eddie to do something with us, first of all.
Yeah.
Secondary, Eddie Sharkey's doing 50 people in a bar, and we're doing 350 in the Armory.
Yep.
And Eddie's just doing the math. It's not a difficult decision.
Yeah.
So I didn't know it at the time. I'm thinking, oh, he really likes what we're doing here. I didn't see it that way, but I'm pretty damn sure that's how Eddie's seen it. And But at the same time, Eddie was so respectful to me, treated me like an adult, was nothing but courteous and just professional with a capital P with me.
Right.
When we came together for this Champion Legion, he said, "All right, how do you want to do it?" He asked me. I said, Eddie, I'm fine with you promoting it. I just want the video rights for the show, for our cable show. I want to be able to broadcast it. He's like, "Okay, that's fine." And so then you just, we'll just, pay you for your matches. I said, "That's fine. I'm okay with that." And then when we'll promote the show on our show, which we did. And on the posters, he put our league and our matches and his league and his matches. It was very professional. And
Right.
That's how my relationship was with Eddie. And then after I met him and everything, there'd be so many times, Dave, on a Saturday afternoon, I would just call him up. And Eddie and I would shoot the breeze for hours on the phone.
Exactly.
Wrestling, nonstop, just different concepts, different things, just everything you can imagine. Things going on in the business, everything. Just wrestling philosophy. That's where I learned a lot from Eddie, just on those phone calls.
Well, it's like, I hate to say it, but you and I, in one of our personal calls recently, you commented about how I slipped in a promotional thing on a Facebook thread that we were both on.
Yeah.
Well, I got to give my props to a couple people for learning promoting things. One, obviously, is you. And another one is a former guest that we had. And I kind of like to think a friend of the show, Papa Liliak, Florin Christie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of people ask why I push for that band so much, but, he's so gracious. I mean, you being the owner of the NWF, you can vouch for this. I mean, Liliak is I guess you'd have to say now, an international touring band, because they did a show last year in India.
Yeah.
And they're working on getting a European tour together. But, they could charge us for the rights to use their music. I mean, the original canned music that we had, you paid, what, $10-$20 for?
I think that was music I had gotten for the Untold Story documentary. So back in those days, a little more expensive, but it's still canned music. It's not like quality music.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Liliak song, it's professionally produced. And when I went to Florida about, being allowed to use the music, I asked him if there was going to be a fee, because, if he wanted to charge me, a small fee for usage, I would have figured out a way to get the money to him. I wouldn't have even come to you. But he said, hey, you asked for permission, go ahead and use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, we got flagged, twice for it?
Well, we keep getting flagged, but the flags are not, they're not going to hurt us. It's just,
yeah,
if we ever monetize, we'd have issues that way. But I'm not even worried about monetizing anything.
Right.
I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this just to let everybody see what we did and kind of have fun watching it again and telling stories and asking questions and answering. That's what I'm doing this for.
And, we may plug our merch.
Yeah, shirts and stuff.
But, we don't charge an arm and a leg for a shirt.
Yeah,
we don't charge an arm and a leg for a DVD.
Yeah, everything's kind of at cost for the most part. And the only thing that helps pay for using this EV Mux to stream, that costs money. So where we get the money to help pay for these kind of things is on our Pivot Share, which is where you can go watch the NWF library from our website.
Yep.
That income stream there helps pay for this, I guess you could say. So that's how we can justify, the expense of it.
We do this show not for any monetary gain. I mean, we do this because we enjoy it. We enjoy sharing your stories.
I want to be really clear here, Dave. We don't pretend to be famous.
No.
We know that we're a small grain in the wrestling world. That had a very unique situation back in the day that has really never happened to the level that we did it. But at the same time, we're not famous for it. I don't want people to
Right.
We got the Hall of Fame coming up, and I don't want people to think that our Hall of Fame is because we want to let everybody know we're famous. Our Hall of Fame is more recognition. It's recognizing. We want people to vote for this final Hall of Fame coming up to recognize who they think stood out in our show that should be recognized for our show.
Right.
And the other thing, Dave, too, if you notice with me, I'm not a big boaster and a bragger. I never have been. I might have been when I was 16, but not so much now. I love to give I've always said this. If it wasn't for you guys being on my show would have never been my show.
Right.
So it took all the guys to be a part of it. That's the one thing. Anybody out there, any kid watching that wants to start their own deal, remember this. You have nothing if you don't have the guys doing it with you. They're
Exactly.
so important. And you have to keep them. That's why I spider webbed out to everybody and kept everybody in, socially in, so that we could keep going every week. You have to. That's with anything. It's anything you do that you're going to run.
It's like, it's kind of like I went, I infamously, when we had that 87 card, I was at the NWA show that night. And after the show, I found out where all the wrestlers were going to be coming in and out of when they left the old Met Center.
Yeah.
And I hung out down there. I mean, I was right down there in that driveway.
Oh, yeah.
So like when Flair came out, I was like, hey, Nate, how about an autograph? And he looked at me and he goes, why should I sign an autograph for a punk kid like you? Totally in character.
Yeah.
And my response to him was, because it's punk kids like me that pay your paycheck.
Yeah.
And he asked what I
did the same thing.
I explained it.
Troy and I did the same thing at the Civic Center, just like you were hanging out by the back door where they all come out.
Yep.
But listen, Dave, we're gonna have to wrap it up. We're coming up on 2 hours, and got a Facebook user gives us a thumbs up. Appreciate that. But yeah, we're gonna wrap it up tonight, folks. We'll be back next Thursday. Dave and I will be here with another show. So I'm looking forward to next week again.
Alrighty, folks. Until next week, be safe, be good, have fun. See you then.